More than 1 in 4 adults over 65 reports a fall each year, according to national health data. But here's the thing, most balance problems don't show up as dramatic spills. They sneak in quietly, through those moments you brush off, hesitating at a curb, grabbing the wall when the room feels just slightly off, or slowing your steps because something feels unsteady. And it's not always about weak legs. Hidden issues like blurry vision at night, medication side effects, or even fear that subtly changes the way you walk can play just as big a role. The good news, most of these problems aren't inevitable. They're the result of a handful of overlooked mistakes that you can actually correct. Here are 6 of the biggest culprits, and how to fix each one, using evidence-based guidance and simple tests you can try at home. Let's start with the very foundation of your balance. The forgotten foundation, feet and ankles. When people picture the source of balance struggles, most think about stiff hips or achy knees. But the truth is, many of the everyday slips and stumbles begin much lower down, right where your body connects with the ground, your feet and ankles. This base carries every step forward. Imagine building a house on shifting sand or cracked concrete. You could have the strongest walls and roof in the world, but if the foundation wobbles, everything above it is at risk. Balance is no different. Without stable, responsive ankles and strong feet beneath you, every move carries uncertainty. Research shows lower body weakness is one of the leading risk factors for falls, underscoring how critical the feet and ankles are. Yet many people overlook this connection, blaming aging knees or a stiff back, when the real problem originates lower down. What begins with tiny hesitations, like rocking while reaching for a cupboard or stumbling when stepping off a curb, often goes unnoticed until the first serious fall. But these quiet warning signs are the early signal that the foundation needs reinforcement. You can see how much your base is contributing with 2 quick at-home tests. Try this now, barefoot, on a stable floor, and with a chair or countertop nearby for safety. First, rise up onto your tiptoes and see if you can hold for 10 seconds. Do you feel strong, or do your ankles tremble right away? Next, test your single leg balance. Lift 1 foot lightly from the floor and aim for up to 30 seconds. Notice whether you can stay steady, or if you wobble so much you'd spill a cup of coffee. These simple checks reveal whether your ankles are responsive and ready, or if they're struggling in ways you may not have realized. Margaret, a retired teacher in her 70s, learned this the hard way. She had stopped gardening and avoided walking on grass, convinced her balance wasn't trustworthy anymore. At gatherings, she remained seated, nervous about losing her footing when grandchildren pulled her to play. But when she began doing short, steady ankle routines, heel raises at her countertop and brief balancing drills during everyday moments, her confidence slowly returned. It wasn't overnight, but with repetition she noticed she could crouch to tie her shoes without fear. That moment, small as it seemed, changed what she believed was possible for her body again. The encouraging part is that improvements come from consistent practice, not exhausting workouts. A simple micro-routine can reset the strength and responsiveness of your lower base. For example, 2 sets of 15 heel raises while holding onto the back of a chair, balancing on one leg during toothbrushing for 3 rounds of about 20 seconds each, and gentle ankle circles 2 sets of 10 per side. According to guidance from organizations like the CDC and NCOA, these kinds of strengthening and balance exercises reduce fall risk when practiced regularly. With just a few weeks of consistent effort, many notice that what once felt unstable becomes smoother and more natural. When the feet and ankles grow steadier, the benefits ripple upward through the rest of the body. The knees and hips stop bracing so rigidly, movements loosen, and even posture improves without conscious effort. Conversely, if that base remains weak, compensation stiffens the rest of the chain, feeding more tension and instability. Restoring strength at the foundation reverses this cycle, allowing the body to move more comfortably as a whole. Supportive shoes and inserts often help in certain situations, but relying only on them can reduce the need for the small stabilizing muscles in the feet to actually work. Allowing safe periods of barefoot time at home encourages the nervous system to switch on those stabilizers again. It's much like practicing with a walking stick until you're stronger. and then gradually relying less on it as your own strength returns. The more you engage your natural support systems, the more reliable and automatic they become. Perhaps most importantly, your soles provide crucial sensory input to the brain, telling it where you are in space. When the ankles stiffen or lose range, this feedback fades, leaving you less aware of how your body is shifting on different surfaces. Training the ankles and feet sharpens this signal again. Instead of reacting late, after a stumble, you sense changes sooner, letting you adjust before instability takes hold. Together, stronger muscles and sharper signals create the kind of stability that feels natural instead of forced. None of this needs long training sessions or athletic ability. It only asks for steady, short moments folded into the day. Heel raises while waiting for the kettle, single leg stands while brushing teeth, ankle circles before sitting down with the newspaper. Practice like this doesn't promise instant transformation, but over time it builds noticeable steadiness. Small, consistent steps create the kind of progress that feels reassuring because it lasts. Once the feet and ankles strengthen, every step up the chain aligns better and movements feel safer. That lingering hesitation when walking over uneven ground fades into confidence, grounded in real stability. And while muscle and joint strength form the base, there's another part of balance that gets far less attention, yet may matter just as much. It's not about how you move, but how you see. The hidden vision trap. Balance isn't guided by muscles alone. Just as your feet and ankles provide the foundation, your eyes constantly supply the brain with the information needed to stay upright. This is what we call the hidden vision trap, because when sight starts to fade, even slightly, it quietly undermines stability in ways that are easy to overlook. Large studies show self-reported vision impairment increases the odds of falling by roughly 20–40%. Both near and distance vision decline can predict future falls, which means overlooking regular eye care can have real physical consequences. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You may bump a shoulder against a doorway you've passed through thousands of times. A table feels like it moved, when really depth perception is off by just a few inches. Tripping on the corner of a rug or missing the first step on the stairs might be explained away as simple clumsiness. But in reality, the brain isn't receiving the clear, sharp picture it depends on to guide the body. The result is hesitation, scanning, or even reaching for walls for extra reference points. Loved ones might tease about constantly grazing the furniture, but for the person inside the experience, these moments are small warnings that confidence is slipping. The gradual nature of vision decline only adds to the trap. A prescription that once felt perfect may no longer align with changing eyes. Cataracts, for example, cloud the lens slowly, which makes them easy to downplay until night driving or dim hallways begin to feel like obstacle courses. At dusk, a once familiar hallway can suddenly look murky, and each step across the floor brings uncertainty. The body adapts with shorter, stiffer steps, the very pattern that ironically raises fall risk. For many, this explains why evenings inside the home often trigger more unease than bright daylight ever does. Now, treatment options today are better than ever. Cataract surgery, for instance, is common, relatively safe, and can restore clarity dramatically. But here's a nuance worth noting. Undergoing surgery on only one eye at first can create short-term imbalance because the brain suddenly has mismatched inputs. Until the second eye is treated, or glasses are updated, depth perception may feel skewed. If you've had cataract surgery, it's wise to discuss updated glasses with your surgeon or optometrist and be mindful of temporary differences between your eyes during recovery. Small steps like these reduce the frustration many experience in the transition phase. At the same time, corrective lenses remain one of the most underused tools for stability. Some people rely on store-bought readers or assume their eyesight isn't bad enough for a new prescription. Yet even subtle mismatches, like having one lens slightly weaker than the other, can tilt perception just enough to throw off balance. The American Academy of Ophthalmology recommends a comprehensive exam yearly, or at least every 1 to 2 years after age 65. These visits catch changes sooner, often before they contribute directly to repeated stumbles or falls. Environmental adjustments play their part, too. Improved lighting, reduced glare, and high-contrast markings around changes in floor level maximize the vision you already have. Today, inexpensive smart lighting systems that brighten hallways and stairwells when natural light drops are making homes safer without major renovation. A darkened corner of a bedroom can easily become a hazard if the eyes struggle to adjust. Brighter, well-placed light restores confidence, not by changing the eyes themselves, but by supporting clearer visual input. Let's revisit a real example. Robert, a retired teacher in his mid-70s, believed weakening legs explained his struggle with balance, especially at night. Stepping into a grocery aisle left him unsteady, and neighborhood walks after sunset seemed impossible. His family eventually urged him to update his eye exam. He discovered both outdated glasses and untreated cataracts. With treatment and new lenses, the same hallway that once felt treacherous became manageable again. He later admitted the surprising realization. His legs had remained strong all along, but his blurred vision had masked their reliability. The link between vision and balance becomes clearer when you think of the body's three systems, eyes, inner ear, and muscle feedback, as a triangle of support. If the visual side weakens, the brain leans harder on the other two. But those systems can't replace visual input entirely. They can only partially compensate. Walking in dim light becomes an experiment in guesswork. Imagine wearing tinted sunglasses indoors and trying to glide across uneven ground. The body slows down, stiffens, and every movement feels uncertain. Repeated often, this cautious pattern chips away at confidence. Dry eye irritation, glare sensitivity, or unrecognized differences between eyes also contribute to this problem in subtle ways. Squinting to clear, fuzzy details lowers awareness of obstacles below. Adapting to discomfort by lowering the gaze reduces detection of steps ahead. Over years, small adaptations like these alter posture and gait. A healthcare provider connecting these dots may be the first to explain why repeated bumps and trips aren't just aging legs, but warning signs of untreated vision issues. Outdoor environments add yet another layer. Bright glare from concrete sidewalks or sudden shifts from dim interiors into bright sun can momentarily blind the eyes. Even a brief pause when leaving the house can destabilize steps. Modern photochromic or polarized lenses, designed to transition faster than older models, reduce this strain. By moderating light shifts more smoothly, they minimize moments of instability that might otherwise lead to a stumble at the front porch or curb. But here's the key. Clearer sight alone is not a replacement for building balance at the muscular level. Vision fixes are a key piece. Pair them with ankle and leg strengthening routines, and the protective effect compounds. Vision gives the brain a steady target, while strong lower body support makes use of the information provided. When both systems are reinforced together, confidence in movement rises sustainably. When people finally experience that difference firsthand, like Robert realizing his steps depended on clearer vision all along, they often begin to prioritize eye care with the same seriousness given to exercise or diet. Talking openly about falls should always include the question, when was your last eye exam? Because clarity doesn't just sharpen the world for reading or driving. It feeds into every step, stabilizing the body before hesitation sets in. The real goal is restoring trust. Reliable sight allows the brain and body to coordinate naturally again. Muscles and joints respond to accurate signals rather than fuzzy guesswork. Movement flows more smoothly, less stiffly. Every step feels less like a calculation and more like an automatic rhythm the body remembers. Confidence rises not from wishful thinking, but from systems working together reliably. Of course, not every balance challenge comes from the eyes, even after correction. Sometimes steadiness erodes despite healthy legs and updated glasses. People slow their steps, feel lightheaded, or move as though the ground itself were tilting. For many, the missing piece isn't vision or strength. It's an invisible factor hiding in plain sight, introduced by the very pills meant to protect health. Medication, the balance saboteur no one notices. Have you ever noticed how often dizziness or unsteady steps begin after a new prescription is added to the mix? Medications often play a bigger role in balance than most people realize. Health organizations like the CDC and the National Council on Aging identify sedatives, certain blood pressure medications, some antidepressants, and painkillers as fall risk-increasing drugs. The catch is that their side effects creep in slowly. So many older adults assume the changes in stability must simply be getting older. In reality, a careful look at the medicine cabinet often uncovers triggers no one thought to question. One of the biggest ways medication interferes with stability is by blunting the body's reflexes. Normally, if you trip on a curb or hit a rough patch of sidewalk, your foot flies forward, arms shoot out, and balance is restored before you even realize what happened. But if a drug slows those reflex signals by even a fraction of a second, recovery comes too late. That tiny delay is all it takes to turn a close call into a fall. Because the slowdown is so subtle, people rarely connect it to a prescription. They start believing they've simply lost their balance, when in fact, the delay is chemically induced. Blood pressure, lowering drugs are among the most common examples. By design, they reduce pressure in the arteries, which is essential for protecting the heart and blood vessels. But when pressure drops too sharply, dizziness or that brief, starry vision on standing occurs. If it happens often, stepping forward feels less secure. Muscles don't receive strong enough signals quickly enough, and people unconsciously shorten their stride, waiting for the feeling to pass. Over time, daily movements become tentative, not because of weakness, but because confidence keeps slipping away. Sedatives prescribed for sleep or anxiety create another layer of risk. Their very purpose is to slow the body and calm the mind, but that calming can carry over into movement. Reaction time lengthens, so every step or turn happens in slow motion. Lifting a foot high enough to clear a stair takes a noticeable beat longer, raising the chance that a toe catches an edge. Navigating a crosswalk while moving that little bit slower can also add risk. From the outside, this looks like stiffness or hesitation. Inside the brain and body, it's the medicine stretching out response time. Opioid painkillers highlight still another pathway. While they dampen chronic discomfort, they dim sensory feedback too. Signals about how much weight is on one foot, how far the body has leaned, or where a limb is in space arrive muted. It's like turning down the volume on your body's built-in alarm system. Without those cues, adjustments happen too late. Someone might unknowingly lean past their center of gravity or step awkwardly on uneven ground because their feet didn't report in clearly to the brain. What looks like a clumsy trip may instead be the body working with muffled inputs. The risk climbs higher when medications are stacked. Most older adults take multiple drugs daily, and the combinations themselves can amplify side effects. A mild sedative alone may not cause much loss of balance, but pair it with a blood pressure drug, and a once manageable effect turns disruptive. Add in a diuretic that lowers hydration and a medication that blunts reflexes, and the load on stability becomes obvious. Because prescriptions often come from different specialists, overlapping effects aren't always spotted quickly. That's where professional review makes such a difference. Take Ellen, for instance. In her 70s, she grew so cautious she limited walking to inside her house, clinging to hallways as she moved. She assumed that her rapid decline in steadiness was just part of aging. At her daughter's urging, she scheduled a pharmacist-led medication review. They discovered 2 separate prescriptions both carried dizziness as a side effect. With her doctor, they adjusted doses and timing. Within weeks, the spinning sensation eased, and her confidence in walking returned. Her story shows how quickly the picture can change when medicines are reviewed and fine-tuned. Stories like Ellen's happen more often than many think. That's why organizations such as the CDC include medication review in their fall prevention initiative known as SDEADI. The idea is simple. Bring every pill, prescriptions, over-the-counter tablets, even vitamins and supplements, into a single appointment, often called a brown bag review. A pharmacist or doctor examines them together, identifying duplicates, interactions, or drugs that may raise fall risk. This doesn't mean abandoning treatments. It means refining them so they keep supporting health instead of undermining it quietly. The most important rule here is not to make changes on your own. Stopping a medication abruptly or altering doses without guidance can be dangerous. Instead, The safer steps include discussing timing with a provider, shifting a pill to a different part of the day when dizziness matters less, or exploring alternative drugs with fewer balance-related side effects. These small shifts can transform stability while keeping conditions under control. Scheduling reviews right after starting a new prescription or after experiencing a fall helps catch issues early before they cascade. And writing down all supplements and over-the-counter remedies ahead of time ensures nothing slips through the cracks. Hydration is another practical factor. Certain medications act as diuretics, pulling water from the body. When fluid levels drop, dizziness rises. That dry mouth feeling can be a red flag that balance is being affected behind the scenes. Combine this with slowed reflexes from another medicine, and walking across a room can feel more hazardous than it should. Recognizing this layered effect helps explain why sudden changes sometimes appear right after adjustments to prescriptions. There's also a psychological side. Repeated dizzy spells make people cautious. They start bracing against walls, reducing activity, or avoiding movements they once managed with ease. While this seems protective, it leads to weaker muscles and stiffer joints, creating the very instability they feared. Side effects from medication might start the process, but fear and inactivity cement it. Rebuilding confidence means not just managing the prescriptions, but also reintroducing gentle movement once dizziness improves. Doing so breaks the cycle of decline and restores trust in the body. Medical professionals are increasingly attentive to this issue. Many clinics now use electronic tools that scan for drug interactions linked with falls during routine visits. Pharmacies often offer fall risk screenings tied directly to medicine lists. A single consult can highlight drugs from different doctors that unintentionally layer on top of one another. Something as small as adjusting two overlapping prescriptions can give dramatic relief. Ultimately, balance depends on clear coordination as much as physical strength. If reflexes are clouded by medicines, no amount of exercise or vision correction can fully solve it. But when medications are streamlined, doses optimized, and timing adjusted, the chemical fog lifts. Suddenly, ankle routines show faster improvements, eye corrections feel sharper, and homes feel safer. Medications matter because they set the baseline for how well all other efforts succeed. So the key takeaway is simple. Not every stumble is due to aging muscles or fading eyesight. Sometimes it's a prescription acting quietly in the background. By asking for a medication review and keeping an open discussion with pharmacists and doctors, older adults often reclaim the steadiness they thought was gone. It isn't quick magic, but it is realistic progress, guided by evidence and professional support. With medications managed smarter, balance improves not only through stronger legs and clearer vision, but through reflexes firing the way they should. And once that foundation is reset, another question emerges. Are the places we move through every day truly as safe as we assume? The safe home that isn't. What often surprises people is that many balance risks are not waiting outside the front door, but inside the very place they feel safest, the home. The living room, bedroom, or kitchen can quietly collect hazards over time, and because they blend into routines, they go unnoticed until a near fall or sudden slip forces attention. Years of familiarity create a sense of safety, but balance doesn't care about familiarity. It responds only to surfaces, obstacles, and lighting as they exist now. Take something as ordinary as socks on hardwood or tile floors. Cozy as they feel, they can transform polished surfaces into skating rinks. Add a throw rug with loose edges or a mat that slides after years of wear, and the floor beneath your feet suddenly becomes unreliable. Most people hardly notice these things, until they do all at once in the moment of a stumble. The shock often feels sharper indoors, because we expect trouble outdoors on ice or uneven sidewalks, not between a sofa and a kitchen chair. Clutter is another invisible culprit. Books stacked beside a favorite recliner, wires stretched to power a lamp, or baskets left in a hallway corner might not look threatening in the daylight. At night, though, when vision blurs and lighting softens, those same objects stand waiting like traps. It's not the heavy obstacles that cause most falls indoors. It's ordinary things left scattered across everyday paths. The danger persists until they're cleared, because unlike potholes outside, they never wash away on their own. Lighting itself plays a huge role. Hallways and stairwells left dark to save electricity might feel manageable in daylight, but the middle of the night reveals a different picture. A single shadow at the base of a step is enough to trigger hesitation or a misstep. And when uncertainty feeds back into how the body moves, steps shorten and balance stiffens. This is exactly the environment where confidence begins to erode. Research supports this concern. Programs that help older adults modify home hazards have been shown to reduce the risk of falls, according to a 2023 systematic review. That means simple changes, tiny shifts many people dismiss, really do add up to measurable protection. It doesn't require a full remodel. Most improvements are small swaps that trade one familiar feature for another, safer version. Here are 5 practical swaps that can make a difference right away. Replace slippery throw rugs with non-slip mats. Add motion-activated night lights in bedrooms, hallways, and stair edges. Clear walkways of clutter and keep floors wide open. Tuck away or secure electrical cords so they no longer cut across paths. And in bathrooms, install grab supports near tubs or showers where surfaces are most unpredictable. These are evidence-based steps recommended by fall prevention experts, and together they build an environment that supports steadier movement every day. Technology can add another layer of safety. Today's fall detection systems use sensors, wearables, or smart devices reviewed in rehabilitation research to detect sudden movements and alert family members. Consider them a safety net, not a replacement for prevention itself. They provide reassurance that help will be on the way if needed, but they cannot prevent slips. A discussion with a clinician can help decide which device blends best with everyday routines and privacy preferences. Upgrading surfaces and environments has become easier, too. Flooring materials now look like wood or tile while adding slip resistance, even reacting to moisture by temporarily improving traction. Stair grip strips and bath mats use modern textures to secure footing without altering the feel of a home. Automatic lighting has also advanced. Motion-sensitive strips placed along bedsides or hallways switch on only when needed, eliminating the scramble for wall switches in the dark. These little adjustments reinforce both safety and confidence. James's story illustrates this well. In his 80s, he nearly fell in his kitchen when a rug shifted under his socks. He had walked on it every morning for years, never thinking twice until that single near miss. At his daughter's insistence, he replaced it with a grip mat designed to stay fixed in place. The adjustment seemed modest, almost trivial, but suddenly the morning walk for coffee carried less worry. That sense of freedom came not from a dramatic intervention, but from one practical change in the right spot. The broader lesson is clear. Making home safety adjustments doesn't have to mean expensive renovations. It's often about recognizing what has changed with time and expectations. A rug safe 20 years ago may now curl just enough to catch a toe. Lighting that once felt adequate may now cast shadows that create hesitation. Accepting that homes age along with people makes it easier to see updates as part of living well rather than giving things up. For those resistant to altering familiar spaces, small integrations can bridge comfort and safety. Voice-controlled plugs can switch on lamps without fumbling in the dark. Grip strips for stairs blend naturally into wood finishes. Smart reminders can nudge occupants to tidy known clutter zones before they become risky. These aren't radical departures. They are subtle supports woven into ordinary routines so daily life continues without feeling disrupted. Sometimes the most effective approach is to use a short room-by-room checklist. In the kitchen, choose non-slip mats at the sink or stove. In the bedroom, place motion lights to mark the path out at night. In the bathroom, add grab bars beside tubs or showers. In hallways, remove clutter and keep walkways clear. And on stairs, add well-placed lighting and grip strips for steadier footing. These simple anchors make areas safer without altering the way someone prefers to live in their home. The advantage of these changes goes beyond reducing hazard itself. They also reshape the way people move. A home filled with small risks creates constant tension. Steps shorten, posture stiffens, and the brain stays on alert. Remove those risks, and movement loosens again. Confidence grows not because strength increased overnight, but because the environment now supports movement rather than undermining it. That internal shift, moving naturally instead of cautiously, often marks the most powerful difference between feeling frail and feeling steady. For many, the hardest part is acknowledging the gap between how they remember their home and how their body experiences it today. Familiarity tends to hide danger, making it feel unnecessary to make modifications. But floors, rugs, and lamps don't change themselves. Health experts highlight that falls most often happen in known environments rather than new ones. That means looking closely at beloved objects and layouts, then adapting them, is not a loss but a safeguard. The best home adjustments become invisible once in place. Grip mats stop shifting underfoot, cords stay out of walkways, and lights switch on exactly when needed, not as constant reminders, but as silent supports. Over time, the home feels familiar again, not because features are unchanged, but because it feels safe to move freely inside. In that environment, steadiness comes more naturally, with less hesitation and less tension carried in every step. A secure home lays the groundwork for trust in movement, but that safeguard is only part of the picture. Even with stronger muscles, clearer vision, better medications, and safer surroundings, many still hesitate. They shorten their stride, tighten their posture, and move as though the ground beneath them might break away. It isn't the room that creates those patterns. It's something internal taking hold, the quiet influence of fear. The confidence killer, fear-based movements. Fear of falling shows up long before an actual fall. It often begins quietly, reshaping the way someone moves without them realizing it. Strides shorten, steps shuffle, and feet barely leave the ground. Instead of walking with a smooth rhythm, it looks more like inching across a surface that might give way at any second. What's happening here isn't weakness at first. It's the brain signaling caution, trying to protect the body by limiting movement. The trouble is, restricted motion leads to stiffer joints and slower reactions, which actually makes balance worse over time. This is how a damaging cycle takes hold. Fear changes walking, stiffness follows, and the body loses the ability to adjust quickly to shifts. Imagine trying to recover from a slip while your knees barely bend and your arms stay locked at your sides. The body simply can't adapt quickly enough. After weeks or months of this pattern, the fear feels validated, more stumbles happen, and confidence drops further. The brain interprets these moments as proof the body is unsafe, even though it was the protective response itself that made walking unstable. Everyday life offers plenty of examples. People begin avoiding simple tasks, stepping into the shower, walking across grass, or bending for items on low shelves. The movements themselves aren't impossible. The restraint caused by fear is what creates the difficulty. Avoidance provides temporary relief, but it also trains the brain to expect danger in those same situations. Soon, activities that once felt natural now feel threatening. Without intervention, that loss of confidence hardens into a habit that limits independence more than physical decline ever did. Fortunately, the same brain that learns to fear movement can also relearn safety. The key is careful, gradual reintroduction of motion that feels secure. Instead of forcing stiff walks or rigid drills, activities that build rhythm and ease help retrain natural patterns. When the body moves smoothly again, the brain receives feedback that motion is safe. That reassurance starts to unravel the cycle. Consider Helen's story. In her late 70s, she stopped going out after a minor fall. Her steps became short and shuffling, and she rarely looked up from the ground. A neighbor encouraged her to try a beginner dance class at the community center. The steps were simple, the pace gentle, and the group laughed together when mistakes happened. Within weeks, she noticed her stride becoming looser, her shoulders less tense, and her eyes moving forward again. It wasn't the dance alone that helped. It was the rhythm, the support, and the joy of moving without fear. Helen's experience captures what research also supports. Playful and rhythmic practice doesn't just strengthen muscles, it calms the mind. When the brain shifts attention toward music, laughter, or social connection, it stops scanning constantly for danger. That break allows natural balance responses to return. Activities like Tai Chi, which combine slow, flowing motion with mindful breathing, are especially effective. Try a gentle Tai Chi class. It's shown to improve balance and confidence in older adults. The evidence is strong enough that organizations like the CDC List it among proven fall prevention interventions. Not everyone has access to a group program immediately, but small daily exercises at home can start building the same effect. 2 simple examples. First, a rhythmic side-to-side sway while standing with light music playing. Keeping feet planted, shift weight slowly from one side to the other, letting the arms relax at your sides. This proves to the body that it can move without resistance. Second, add a playful element, such as tossing a balloon back and forth with a grandchild or even marching gently to music while seated. These light activities reframe motion as fun, not threatening, and they sidestep the fear triggers by keeping the focus elsewhere. The power of these micro-practices is not in how strenuous they are, but in how consistently they remind the brain that balance is possible. Each safe repetition becomes evidence that walking and shifting aren't dangerous. That evidence builds confidence slowly but steadily. With consistent gentle practice and social or group support, many people feel less fear and move more freely within weeks to months. The timeline is individual, but the principle holds true. Trust in movement can be restored. It's also worth noting that fear doesn't only limit confidence, it carries real physical effects. Muscles held in tension tire faster. Shoulders curl forward, breathing becomes shallow, and even short walks feel exhausting. Addressing fear through easier, joyful movement helps reverse this tension. The body begins to conserve energy again instead of wasting it on guarding against imagined danger. Importantly, family and caregivers should recognize these shifts not as signs of permanent decline, but as signals that fear has taken hold. When understood correctly, the response isn't resignation, it's retraining. For many, home remains the safest and most convenient place to begin. Practicing light routines in a well-prepared environment, clear pathways, bright lighting, stable surfaces, minimizes distractions and hazards. This allows the nervous system to focus on learning trust again. Safe surroundings provide a solid base, and playful activity provides the spark. Together, they keep progress steady and help prevent setbacks fueled by anxiety. The ultimate goal is restoring natural patterns of movement. Walking should feel automatic again, not rehearsed with every step overthought. Repetition, rhythm, and support are the tools that lead back to this point. Success isn't simply measured by stronger muscles, but by the return of ease, lifting the foot without hesitation, changing direction smoothly, or crossing a room without glancing constantly at the floor. Fear may be one of the most powerful disruptors of balance, but it isn't fixed. The same systems that learned caution can unlearn it through safe, supported practice. The change doesn't come overnight, but each step taken with less hesitation becomes proof that progress is real. Over time, fear's influence weakens, and steadiness becomes more reliable. Recognizing fear as a factor matters because it brings another truth into focus. Balance isn't only about strength, vision, or the home environment. It also depends on deliberate practice. Yet too often, balance itself is the very element missing from most exercise routines. Skipping balance training altogether. Most people stay active through walking, stretching, or even light strength work, but far fewer give balance its own place in their routine. It doesn't grab attention like a treadmill or lifting weights, yet skipping it is one of the most consistent reasons stability fades. Without practice, small hesitations become normal. Reaching for a cup in the kitchen, stepping down just one stair, or turning too quickly in the hallway feels different than it used to. There's no alarm when balance starts slipping. It just slowly fades until those little hesitations add up. The hesitation to practice balance is understandable. If standing on one leg feels unsteady, the natural response is to avoid it. That choice feels safer in the moment, but avoidance accelerates decline. Muscles, joints, and reflexes respond to use it or lose it. And once the nervous system realizes balance isn't being challenged, it stops keeping those responses sharp. That's why someone who hasn't practiced in years can feel shaky straight away. The skill isn't gone, but it's dulled and slower to react, exactly when faster corrections are needed most. Part of the problem is mindset. Many believe building muscle is enough protection, but balance is not just about strength, it's about timing and coordination. You can have strong legs and still stumble if the body doesn't know how to reorganize quickly in real time. Think of driving a car with a powerful engine but a loose steering wheel. The strength is there, but the control is missing. Without balance practice, systems fall out of sync and falls become easier to trigger. The irony is that training balance doesn't have to be complicated. It can be built into daily routines. For example, brushing your teeth is already 2 minutes twice a day. Turning that into a practice by standing on one leg, switching sides halfway through, creates natural rehearsal. You don't need new equipment, just consistency. Moments like this are reminders to the nervous system that balance matters, and over time, reflexes sharpen again. Awareness matters too. Mindful stepping, or paying deliberate attention to how each foot lands and how body weight shifts, builds patterns the brain is quick to forget. Doing this for 10 minutes in the backyard or down a hallway renews the link between intention and response. Slow, controlled steps retrain pathways, which later help during fast, unexpected ones, like catching yourself after a slip on uneven ground. Structured options like Tai Chi are well recognized for this reason. The slow, flowing sequences cultivate steadiness without strain and also calm the fear that often accompanies instability. Movements are simple, but they demand attention and gentle weight shifts that reinforce coordination. It's less about the difficulty of one session and more about the repetition across weeks. Practiced regularly, those shifting movements become a quiet rehearsal for the body's natural corrections. Lateral movement is another missing piece. We walk forward all the time, but rarely side to side. Trouble is, many falls happen from sideways missteps. Practicing a few minutes of side steps along a counter or wall brings back responsiveness in that plane of motion. It can be done indoors, safely supported, and makes later reactions more automatic. The point isn't to create new exercise habits from scratch, but to restore motions that faded from daily routines. Safety while practicing matters. Working near a steady countertop, a strong chair back, or table ensures support is within reach. This builds confidence, since the brain recognizes that the risk of falling during practice is minimal. Over time, that crutch is used less and stability feels natural. Balance training is built for progression. You begin with maximum support and reduce it as confidence grows, without rushing. What makes these practices effective is not grand effort but regularity. The body improves steadily when balance rehearsals happen daily, even if only for a few minutes. Skipped altogether, the opposite is true. Decline continues and recovery feels harder to win back. Progress isn't instant, but with consistency, most people notice small but real changes within weeks. Being able to hold a single leg stand for a few extra seconds is proof the system is reawakening. Writing these improvements down in a notebook or calendar keeps motivation steady, a reminder that practice is building results over time. To put this into something immediately usable, here's a 5-minute balance routine you can try today. 1 minute of marching in place as a warm-up, 1 minute of heel-to-toe walking across a small space, 3 rounds of single leg balance holding 10-20 seconds by a sink or countertop, and 1 minute of side steps along a wall. Start with as much support as needed. Keep focus on control rather than speed, and let progress build slowly but consistently. For those who want structured guidance beyond home practice, evidence-based programs exist. Ask your clinician about the Otago exercise program. It was designed for older adults and is proven to reduce fall risk. These programs guide participants through practical strength and balance routines, often in short sessions that fit easily into daily life. They are not only safe, but tested, with clear results tracked across large groups of older adults. Having something structured reinforces accountability, which is especially useful if staying on track alone feels difficult. The choice, then, is between waiting until balance noticeably falters or beginning practice now, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. The earlier it becomes part of daily life, the more it preserves independence and reduces falls before they start. The nervous system responds longer than many assume, and new patterns can be written at any age. Each small step retrains confidence and prepares the body to respond when stability is challenged unexpectedly. Skipping balance practice isn't laziness, it's a common misunderstanding. Too many think exercise means only cardio and strength, leaving stability behind. But the research and real-life outcomes are clear. Ignoring balance leads to decline, and practicing it regularly protects mobility. The shift begins when balance is seen as essential, not extra. Fold it right into routines, treat it as basic self-care, and the difference in daily life is hard to miss. But there's something else at work too. Even with the best intentions, some people still skip practice, not because they don't understand its value, but because they live and move alone. Without encouragement or shared activity, it's easier to sit, to delay, to withdraw. While hesitation inside the body weakens balance skills, isolation outside the body does its own damage, in quieter ways that shape stability just as much. The role of social isolation in balance decline. Most people assume balance decline comes only from changes in muscles or joints. Yet another factor often reshapes stability, one many overlook: long stretches of social isolation. When the day-to-day rhythm shrinks to just a few rooms and little interaction, the body and brain receive far less stimulation. At first, it feels harmless. Reading, watching television, or spending quiet hours at home seem safe. But balance is a skill that needs variety and challenge. Without fresh environments and shared activity, that skill begins to erode quietly in the background. Global health authorities recognize this link. The World Health Organization and others identify social connection as a pillar of healthy aging, with studies showing that loneliness and isolation are tied to poorer physical health, higher fall risk, and increased mortality. The mechanism is straightforward. Fewer outings also mean fewer opportunities for movement variety. Small things like turning down a store aisle, adjusting pace at a crosswalk, or stepping over a curb are not just routine. They are practice sessions for the nervous system. With less practice, reflexes grow slow and muscles lose their readiness. Daily routes confined to a living room and kitchen don't challenge balance in the same way. So when a sudden demand comes, a quick pivot, an uneven surface, the body no longer responds with the same speed or accuracy. That lag is where small stumbles begin. Another layer comes from the steady lowering of motivation. Social isolation drains the spark that nudges people out the door or onto their feet. Without friends to meet or a group to join, the incentive to move dwindles. Walks feel optional. Exercise routines slip away. Even chores take on an air of effort rather than purpose. Over time, each skipped outing tightens the loop. Less activity leads to weaker muscles. Weaker muscles make activity harder, and harder activity reinforces the desire to avoid it. The body could still respond if trained, but the will to train fades without encouragement. Isolation also reshapes posture. Hours spent without conversation or eye contact often mean more time sitting, sometimes slumped or leaning forward. That posture begins to lock into the way someone stands and walks. Shoulders round, head tilts down, gait shortens. This shift subtly pulls balance forward toward the toes instead of keeping it centered, which makes catching missteps harder. Combined with stiff muscles and sluggish reflexes, posture becomes one more piece that tips stability away from steady ground. The emotional feedback is powerful as well. Loneliness carries stress, raising levels of tension throughout the body. Muscles held in chronic tightness stiffen rather than respond fluidly. Walking begins to feel rigid. Hips and shoulders stop swinging naturally, and movements that should conserve energy instead burn through it. This tension adds to fatigue and undermines confidence. What looks like physical decline often starts with the quieter influence of isolation weighing on mood and motivation. Fortunately, the reverse is also true. Connection builds momentum. A well-timed phone call, an invitation to walk, or a group class restores purpose and rhythm. Frank's experience illustrates this. After his wife passed away, most days blurred between the sofa and the kitchen. He felt unsafe even in his driveway. A neighbor urged him to join a community walking group. Reluctantly, he tried. Within weeks, he noticed his stride loosening, his steps lifting higher than before. Months later, neighbors commented that he looked more upright. The walks helped, but what made the real difference was the group. It gave him consistency, energy, and something to look forward to. The pattern here is important. Social activity adds accountability, and accountability keeps practice steady. Movement becomes less about effort and more about routine. Each week of regular connection retrains reflexes, strengthens muscles, and rebuilds confidence. This is why many fall prevention guidelines now list social participation alongside strength and balance practice. They recognize that improving stability isn't just about exercises. It's about whether people do them consistently, and connection makes that more likely. Practical options exist for anyone looking to counteract isolation's effect on balance. One is to join a community walking group or balance class. The pace is usually gentle, the support built in, and the presence of others makes it easier to keep showing up. Another is to try supervised online or virtual exercise programs. Tele-rehab classes and remote balance routines let people practice movements safely from home while interacting with others in real time. And local community centers often provide evidence-based programs designed specifically for fall prevention. These offer both structure and fellowship, reducing risk on two fronts at once. Micro-actions matter too. A single phone call to schedule a weekly walk with a friend can shift a routine from solitary to social. Joining a short online chair balance class brings both activity and connection in a single half-hour session. These steps may seem small, but each introduces variety, motivation, and the subtle challenges the balance system craves. They turn stillness into motion and silence into conversation, two ingredients that strengthen stability as much as any exercise routine. Technology can help soften the barriers. Virtual groups recreate many of the movements found outside, like looking side to side, shifting pace, or standing for longer periods. While not a replacement for real outings, they restore confidence and prepare people to join in-person activities later. And because participation often happens in the familiarity of home, it feels safe. That lowered threshold makes the first step easier, and from there, momentum builds. Ultimately, what protects balance is not just strong ankles or good lighting. It's variety, purpose, and the chance to respond to new movements. Isolation strips those things away quietly, while connection restores them. Conversation, laughter, shared steps, all of these force tiny, spontaneous adjustments that sharpen reflexes and make walking smoother. They keep motivation alive and reverse the decline hidden in silence. When people reconnect, they don't only feel better emotionally. They begin to stand taller, walk steadier, and respond faster to changes underfoot. The shift may not happen overnight, but each shared outing, each class, each phone call moves the needle. That is why health leaders now treat social connection as protective in the same way they treat medication reviews or home modifications. It is a form of prevention in itself. Behind every steady step is not just muscle strength or sharp vision, but a network of supports that keeps the body and mind engaged. Strength grows when it is used. Reflexes remain alert when they are challenged, and motivation thrives when shared. Together, those elements remind the nervous system that walking is safe, natural, and automatic. Restoring balance, then, is about far more than exercise. It is about building an environment where activity feels purposeful and rewarding. Each supportive relationship, each moment of engagement, protects mobility. And once that piece is in place, the focus can shift again, toward another influence on balance that lives quietly in the background. Because stability is not shaped by movement alone, but also by what fuels the body from the inside. Nutrition, the balance fuel few think about. Can the food on your plate really affect how steady you feel when you move? It may not be the first thing that comes to mind, but nutrition has a direct role in whether your body supports you confidently or slips into fatigue and weakness. Muscles need rebuilding material, bones rely on steady reinforcement, and your nervous system functions best when fueled properly. When the body doesn't get those building blocks, the results often show up as slower reflexes, unsteadier steps, and energy that runs out more quickly than expected. What seems like ordinary aging can sometimes be a simple case of missing the right fuel. One of the most important pieces is protein. Every motion you make relies on small, stabilizing muscles firing on time, and protein is the raw material that maintains them. Without enough, these muscles shrink and fatigue faster. For older adults, even light shortfalls in protein make it harder to stand from a chair, walk longer distances, or catch yourself after a stumble. If you've ever crouched to pick something up and found it unexpectedly difficult to rise again, low protein might be part of the explanation. Ensuring steady intake from foods like lean meats, legumes, eggs, dairy, or fish helps keep these essential muscles working. Vitamin D and calcium operate together on another front. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium, and together they strengthen bone, which doesn't prevent slips outright but makes the consequences far less severe. Weak bones create not only real fracture risk, but also fear. People who know their bones are brittle instinctively move more rigidly, avoiding activity, which accelerates muscle weakness. Addressing these nutrients maintains physical resilience and reduces the fear-based stiffness that quietly undermines balance. Health agencies consistently list low vitamin D and lower body weakness among modifiable fall risk factors, which highlights the importance of nutrition for stability as much as exercise or medication adjustment. Hydration is equally critical, though it's often overlooked. Losing fluids doesn't just create thirst, it lowers blood pressure, reduces circulation efficiency, and slows thought processing. That's why lightheadedness when standing quickly is one of the clearest signs of dehydration interfering with balance. A simple pause to steady yourself before walking may feel like caution, but sometimes it's the body struggling for fluid balance. Regular hydration stabilizes circulation and reflexes, making it easier for the whole system to respond without delay. Coffee, commonly used as a morning boost, can't compensate for missing nutrients. On its own, caffeine briefly sharpens alertness, but without adequate protein, vitamins, minerals, and water, the body still lacks the materials required to sustain balance. Too much coffee without food or hydration can even swing energy upward before it crashes down, which leaves the body shakier. Coffee doesn't harm balance directly, but it should support, not replace, the essentials. This is why research shows that when older adults consistently meet daily needs for protein, vitamin D, calcium, and hydration, their fall risk decreases. The key isn't elaborate diets or exotic supplements, but rather meeting core requirements. Enough protein strengthens stabilizing muscles, vitamin D with calcium keeps bones dependable, and water keeps coordination steady. Together, they create a quieter but powerful foundation for balance. Susan's experience is a good example. A grandmother in her 70s, she stayed active with gardening and walks but grew tired more quickly and began stumbling more often. She assumed it was age catching up. Her meals, however, were light and low in protein, coffee and toast in the morning and snacks throughout the day. After her doctor recommended adding a morning protein shake and including lean protein at dinner, she noticed her energy and steadiness returning within weeks. The difference did not come from an advanced routine, but from finally giving her muscles enough material to maintain themselves. Hydration has its own story. Many people avoid water late in the day to reduce nighttime bathroom trips, but that often leaves them short on fluids altogether. For older adults, thirst is less reliable, so waiting until you feel parched is often too late. Planning ahead helps. A practical strategy is aiming for a glass of water every hour or targeting 4-6 cups across the day, adjusted to medical advice if fluid restrictions apply. This keeps circulation stable, helps concentration, and reduces the sudden dizziness that can trigger unsteady footing. Blood sugar swings also matter. Meals high in refined sugar or too light in fiber cause spikes and crashes that leave energy unpredictable. That unpredictability shows up as fatigue and unsteady gait. Adding steady energy sources, whole grains, nuts, or vegetables, smooths those swings so the nervous system and muscles work evenly throughout the day. You don't need detailed meal plans. Swapping in more fiber-rich staples is enough to create stability in both energy and movement. Calcium makes its appearance here alongside vitamin D. Without reliable intake, bones become fragile, and fragility feeds fear just as much as it increases injury risk. The knowledge that a misstep could cause a fracture discourages activity. When calcium intake is strong, people tend to walk and move with confidence, which itself is protective. This is why food and supplements addressing bone health indirectly reinforce balance by restoring the willingness to stay active. There's also the question of daily rhythm. Eating balanced meals at regular times sets a dependable cycle for energy. Skipped or irregular meals dismantle that rhythm, leading to shorter periods of activity and longer stretches of inactivity. In contrast, Structured eating supports movement by keeping energy consistent. Even something as simple as a protein-rich breakfast, Greek yogurt with fruit, or a small protein shake can set the tone for a steadier day. To make these ideas practical, start with 3 manageable changes. Replace a light pastry or toast breakfast with yogurt, nuts, or a simple shake to ensure protein first thing in the morning. Include at least 1 serving of vitamin D. Fortified milk or talk with a clinician about supplementation while also considering safe short exposures to sunlight. And keep hydration steady by sipping water regularly, aiming for a consistent baseline rather than large sporadic amounts. Each of these is small, simple, and realistic, and together they create everyday support for balance. Mood adds one more layer to the picture. Poor nutrition often shows itself not only in fatigue, but also in irritability or lack of motivation. Energy dips discourage exercise and movement, while steadier nutrition promotes steadier mood. A balanced mood makes people more likely to go for that walk, attend that class, or practice those balance drills that matter so much. Nutrition does not solve every challenge, but it supports every other effort you make towards stability. Still, it is important to avoid thinking of nutrition as a cure by itself. Protein, vitamins, and water do not eliminate instability alone. Instead, they are part of a partnership with exercise, medical review, supportive environments, and consistent practice. Without them, those efforts weaken. With them, they gain power. Maintaining balance requires the body to have both skill and building materials, and nutrition provides that material in the simplest way possible. Think of it as creating background conditions that make improvement possible. Stronger muscles from exercise develop best when supplied with protein. Confidence in mobility builds more easily when bones feel secure through vitamin D and calcium. Reflexes trained through balance practice respond more reliably when hydration keeps the system sharp. Each piece connects, and neglecting nutrition reduces the effectiveness of all the others. In fact, many older adults who begin balance programs or physical therapy notice change much faster when they also adjust their nutrition. Muscles recover from activity more easily, energy lasts longer, and the courage to push into practice grows. This dual effect, exercise plus nutrition, explains why experts continue to list both as non-negotiable parts of fall prevention. The work done in one area multiplies when matched by the other. Food may not seem like a dramatic lever for independence, but its influence is seen every time a step feels smoother or more energized. Meals, hydration, and supplementation, arranged with guidance from clinicians, act as background scaffolding for every movement you make. Small daily choices directly affect how confident your footing feels. Practical adjustments do not have to be sweeping life changes or strict diets. It's about replacing empty fuel with steady, reliable support. Yogurt instead of pastries, water instead of soda, fortified milk or shakes instead of nutrient-poor drinks. Each substitution is a subtle signal to your body. You have the resources to move without hesitation. By reframing nutrition less as a separate health project and more as fuel that feeds the other balance systems, older adults often rediscover progress sooner than expected. It becomes less about dieting and more about living in a way that supplies muscles, bones, and nerves with what they need daily. That, in turn, reduces the weariness that stops people from continuing balance practice or enjoying social activities, 2 of the biggest protectors against decline. Taken together, good nutrition forms an invisible base for everything else you do to stay steady. It supports confidence, strengthens what you train, and adds resilience when life challenges mobility. It isn't dramatic, but its impact is visible in how consistently people can move, recover, and continue practicing other balance skills. And when that base is in place, the question becomes, what else can extend steadiness in everyday life, beyond food, exercise, and social habits? That's where another emerging support is gaining attention, tools designed specifically to track and reinforce balance in simple and accessible ways. Tech to the rescue, gadgets that actually help. Are balance apps and wearable trackers just modern gimmicks, or do they actually help people stay steadier on their feet? That's the question many older adults ask, and it's worth taking seriously. Not all technology earns its keep. but new devices in recent years have been designed specifically with seniors in mind. They focus less on flashy features and more on clear feedback, simple controls, and real-life use. The result is not complex graphs or endless menus, but straightforward tools that act more like silent assistants, subtle, reliable, and always in the background. Health researchers are starting to confirm that some of these tools really do make a difference. Studies looking at wearable balance tech and even emerging wearable perturbation devices suggest they can help improve reactive postural control, the body's ability to respond quickly when something throws it off balance. Tele-rehab systems that use simple devices and guided routines have also shown promise in keeping people engaged in balance practice from home. While tech is not a cure-all, the evidence shows it can support steadier movement when paired with other strategies. For many, though, the barrier isn't what the devices can do. It's the fear of wrestling with confusing technology. Passwords, baffling screens, and complicated instructions have discouraged people from trying them. Designers began addressing this by creating large text displays, easy-to-understand color codes, and direct alerts. Instead of long readouts, newer tools often provide one clear message: steady or unsteady. This clarity makes them approachable. Seniors don't need to sift through data, but can instead act on a direct, understandable signal. Among the most useful innovations are smart insoles. They look like ordinary shoe inserts, but contain sensors that track pressure shifts, stride patterns, and pauses. Instead of waiting for a short clinic exam, these insoles quietly record how a person moves throughout the day in real life. If gait symmetry changes or weight begins tilting toward one side, the data highlights it long before the person might notice. That information allows earlier adjustment, simple strength drills, footwear updates, or medication checks before balance slips further. Balance tracking watches are another common option. Unlike earlier step counters, these watches use gyroscopes and accelerometers to monitor sway, reaction speed, and stability during standing or walking. For example, if the device detects that you pause longer when turning, it might mark that as a change in stability and give a nudge. Practice stability drills today. In this way, the watch acts like a coach paying attention to details you might miss, offering reminders before small hesitations turn into larger problems. Fall detection devices have also evolved. Earlier models came as dangling pendants that often sent false alarms for harmless movements. The updated versions now clip to clothing or tuck into belts, using smarter algorithms to tell the difference between bending to tie a shoe versus hitting the ground. For loved ones, the reassurance is immediate. If a fall happens, alerts go out automatically. For older adults, the greater benefit may be peace of mind. Knowing that help would arrive if needed reduces the constant fear of falling, which itself improves confidence and posture. Take the story of Linda. After stumbling outdoors, she avoided evenings outside. With a little encouragement, she tried a balance app paired with smart insoles. The setup turned out to be simple, and the app showed her steady improvements each week. That visible progress gave her confidence to return to her evening walks again. Devices didn't create her results, but they gave her proof that her efforts were paying off. Tech helps with information and reassurance, but it works best when combined with real practice and clinician guidance. The appeal of these devices isn't only in the numbers they generate, it's how those numbers motivate. When someone sees their balance score improving, it challenges the inner voice that doubts progress. Even small notifications like, "Good job today," carry weight. Encouragement feels different when it's supported by visible evidence. While friends and family may reassure, digital proof often helps the brain trust what the body is accomplishing. That trust is what keeps people from quitting too early. Family involvement is another quiet benefit. Many apps now share progress summaries with family or caregivers, maintaining connection without feeling intrusive. This turns concerned questions like, "Are you okay?" into positive support. "I saw your balance score tick up this week." The result is accountability without hovering, which helps independence feel intact while still offering encouragement. Cost and usability once kept these devices out of reach, but accessibility is improving. Balance tracking features have started appearing in mainstream fitness watches, and smart insoles are being sold alongside typical orthotics. Local clinics and community centers in some areas even offer short-term loaner programs so people can test devices before buying. When considering options, it's best to look for models with simple symbols, clear sound or vibration alerts, and responsive customer support. These details prevent frustration and keep the technology a help rather than a hassle. It's important to highlight realistic options anyone can consider without getting overwhelmed. First, automatic fall detection devices or medical alert systems act as a safety net. They quietly monitor in the background and send help if a fall occurs. Second, simple balance tracking wearables or insoles provide daily feedback. Both of these options are meant as companions, not replacements for exercise programs, medication reviews, or home modifications. Their job is to track, alert, and encourage, not to take over the work needed for lasting improvement. Practicality and affordability go hand in hand with adoption. Devices should integrate smoothly into existing routines, like slipping on shoes or wearing a watch. Overly complicated gadgets risk being set aside after a week. That's why clear interfaces matter. When balance feedback comes like a battery meter, full, steady, or drained, the message lands and action follows. Clinics or senior centers may also guide people toward models with proven usability, avoiding frustration with too much complexity. Skepticism toward technology is understandable, especially with so many new products on the market. But when people find a device that fits their lifestyle, the benefits are measurable. A fall alert that ensures fast help in an emergency, a watch that prompts a quick stability drill, or an insole that spots uneven steps early, all of these subtle assists add up. The outcomes may not feel dramatic day to day, but their impact on independence is real. For many, the difference is staying active in the community instead of feeling tethered by worry. These tools also highlight how balance progress builds gradually. They offer proof in numbers and trends that small improvements matter. Checking an app once a week or wearing a clip-on device when leaving the house may be all that's needed. It doesn't require becoming a tech expert. For most, success with balance gadgets lies in letting technology play a small, supportive role. Used this way, they are sustainable long-term because they don't overwhelm daily life with constant notifications or high-maintenance setups. In the bigger picture, balance-supporting technology is not there to replace lived routines, but to reinforce them. They hold seniors accountable with data, reassure families, provide alerts in emergencies, and motivate small daily practices. They are not the core intervention, but they strengthen everything else: exercise, nutrition, medication review, environmental safety, by keeping confidence alive. When used thoughtfully, these devices stop feeling like gadgets and start feeling like reliable partners. They provide reassurance, reminders, and clear feedback without interfering with independence. What matters is choosing the tools that fit into life without extra burden. Whether it's a safety clip that brings peace of mind on walks, or a simple app that confirms steady progress each week, these tools extend mobility while keeping control in the hands of the person using them. The most valuable part of this shift is perspective. Tech shows that improvement is not only possible, it is measurable. That visible proof often gives people the courage to keep practicing, to keep moving, and to keep believing change is possible. By lowering uncertainty, technology reopens doors that fear had closed. That steadying effect, subtle as it may be, can be life-changing when it means the difference between hesitation and participation. And yet, even with stronger muscles, clearer feedback, and devices offering reassurance, there remains a deeper barrier to overcome. Progress stalls most when people believe they cannot change their path at all. The most harmful mistake is not the physical risks themselves, but the belief that decline is inevitable. The most damaging mistake is assuming balance loss is inevitable, when in fact many causes are modifiable. Progress isn't about dramatic overhauls, but about steady, small steps that stack up over time. Choose one thing right now. A. Try the barefoot tiptoe and single leg test. B. Call your pharmacist this week for a medication review. Or C. Phone a friend and schedule one short walk together. Pick one of these now and drop which one you chose in the comments. If this helped you, like the video and subscribe for more practical, research-backed tips on staying steady and independent. Small, consistent actions add up. Stability is something you can rebuild and protect.